I would say I'm Ursula von der Leyen's worst nightmare.
Are you?
Well, let's put it that she doesn't like me. She does not like me at all. Because I always seem to find a way to pretty much lay it on thick on her failures. But I mean, she managed to ruin pretty much everything with every single policy suggestion.
So allow me in this podcast to push back sometimes to make an interesting conversation. So you are against Europe? You want Europe to be abolished?
I'm gonna stop you right there. See, that's exactly what they're doing. I am not against Europe.
You are a huge advocate for freedom of speech. So do you think freedom of speech exists in Europe right now?
No. If the freedom of speech had any value, it is to offend. That's the very essence. You don't need freedom of speech for statements that everyone would like to hear. Democracy lives from debate. And if you can no longer debate things because it's malinformation or forbidden or hate speech or disinformation, whatever it is, then you no longer have a debate. And you will ultimately no longer have a possibility to arrive to get to the truth.
And the great question on this topic is who judges what is true or not?
Who is the arbiter of that? Is it Ursula von der Leyen? Well, thank you. No.
Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I would say I'm Ursula von der Leyen's worst nightmare. But in reality, I'm pretty much just a regular MEP trying to do good by the people.
Why you are Ursula von der Leyen? By the way, Ursula von der Leyen is the leader in a way of the EU, but why you are?
Well, we have a fundamental difference in what democracy actually is. So I believe in democratic principles that the voter gets to say how he wants to be governed. And to achieve that, he goes to the ballot, he casts his vote. But at this point, it seems to be no matter what the voter votes for, he gets the exact opposite. So that, like I said, a fundamental difference. And the way things are going now, it's the ever more, or the increase in surveillance. We've just seen it with chat control. After we Parliament denied chat control twice, they actually managed to get it on the agenda a third time. And this time they voted for the expedited procedure. So here we are.
Do you think Ursula von der Leyen knows that you are her worst nightmare?
Well, let's put it that she doesn't like me. She does not like me at all because, I always kind of find a way.
We're from the same country, by the way.
Exactly. So, I mean, she was a total failure when she was the Minister of Defense in Germany.
How many years you've been in politics?
Well, I've became a member of my party AfD in Germany in 2013 when AfD was founded.
Oh, really? It was that recent that AfD was founded?
Yes. Yeah, we're going on 13 years now. 13 years now. So, but I mean, the way or the reason my party was even founded, there was a direct reaction to the utter failure of parties that I supported all my life. In Germany, ever since I was eligible to vote, I voted for the Christian Democrats and the former Liberal Party, which are affiliated here with Renew, the FDP, that's the name in Germany. And, they, for the most part, did a good job, at least up until, I would say, the late 80s. But something changed in the 90s, and now they're just another party, going along with all this green and left kind of BS agenda stuff. So we're pretty much, the AfD pretty much stepped in what the Christian Democrats and the Free Democratic Liberals abandoned. And that's pretty much our politics. So, but anyway, Ursula von der Leyen, she does not like me at all because I always seem to find a way to, pretty much lay it on thick on her failures. And like I said, even in Germany, once she held office in Germany, 3 different ones. The one was Minister of Defense. The other one was, she was the Minister of Family. And the third one, I even forgot. But I mean, she managed to ruin pretty much everything with every single policy suggestion. And now we are in a state where even though you utterly fail, you still manage to get promoted
to the highest position.
Exactly. Well, she wish it was the highest position, which it isn't. I mean, she is not a president of a state, mind you. It is beyond me why she is even by foreign administrations.
So
you
don't think it's an important position that she has?
Well,
come on.
They made it out to be, but strictly formally speaking, she is not. The EU is not a state. Thank God it isn't. But they're trying to establish some kind of the United States of Europe or whatever they're dreaming up with. Which is actually quite clever if you think about it. Who would benefit actually from a United States of Europe? Who would benefit? Well, big business would benefit from it. Big pharma, all the tech companies, they would benefit. Why would they benefit? Because they don't have to deal with 27 different member states and their governments. All they have to do is get Ursula von der Leyen on board with whatever it is they want. And that's it. And we've seen that during COVID, right? Pfizer, he was able to strike his deal because Ursula von der Leyen is like one of his buddy friends. And she managed to, sign a contract for, 4.3 billion doses. That's half the planet, for God's sakes, with these stupid mRNA injection contracts. And all of the member states, they couldn't even say, no, we don't want this. And now we're seeing it. Pfizer is actually suing a couple of member states of the EU because they did not take as much as Ursula von der Leyen promised them that they would take. So yeah, it's.
So allow me in this podcast to push back sometimes to make an interesting conversation. So
go ahead.
Just for me to clarify, so you are against Europe? You want Europe to be abolished? Explain.
Yeah,
because
I'm going to stop you right there. See, that's exactly what they're doing. I am not against Europe. Europe is probably the most beautiful continent on this entire planet. The world envies us. We are living on this beautiful continent, and it's such a small continent with so many different cultures, languages. It's just rich, diverse. So it's just beautiful. But the EU is not Europe. That is entirely different. The EU is actually destroying Europe. That's what they're doing. So when people, accuse me, you are against Europe. No, I'm not. I love Europe. And I want Europe to stay the way it is with the different peoples, the different cultures, the different languages. All of it. When I'm in Greece, I don't expect to see a lifestyle that reminds me of, the stiffness of Germany. When I go to Italy, I want to live the Italian vibe, how the people live there.
So you are against the European Parliament existing?
I'm against the EU in the way it turned out to be. So the EU started out with countries getting together, identifying certain areas where it would be beneficial for us to work together, which was totally fine.
Trade.
Right? Exactly. So, it started out with the Montanunion. It was basically the trade in steel or production of steel and stuff like that. So they came together and came up with projects and worked together in that aspect. But what we're seeing now is the EU grasping ever more competencies, which in the contracts are actually the responsibility of the member states.
You mean the treaties?
Well, yeah, exactly. So, but they're grabbing more competencies, thus rendering the member states pretty much powerless. They can't do anything about it, right? The EU also lacked,
just to explain to the people, most of the regulations that we have in member states are coming from the EU.
Exactly. At this point, yeah. And that is also interesting. We're talking about gross violations of democratic principles. Usually it is like that the national parliaments are the elected representatives of the people of that respective country. So in my case, Germany, the Bundestag. right? So if the German government wanted to pass a law, and the Bundestag, the elected members of the Bundestag said, no, we don't want this law. They vote no, and it's done. This law would be, or this regulation would be dead. But now we have the EU level. So now what they're doing is the member of the German government, mind you, that wants to pass this law, he now travels to Brussels and he talks to his colleagues from the other national governments, and they simply pass the law here. Because the ones that are passing the laws here are the members of the national executive. It's not the legislative. So, to intermix this. So in essence, what that means is even if the German elected representatives, the member of the Bundestag, say, no, we don't want this law, then the member of the German government travels to Brussels, passes the law here, and then it comes back as a regulation to Germany, and we now must implement it into a law. And this is the principle. It happens in every single member state. So effectively, what is happening here is the national parliaments are being overruled. There goes your democratic principle of, division of power, legislative, judicative, and legislative. It's just gone. Simply because we have the council here in Brussels who passed the law on EU level.
So what you present as an idea for EU to still exist, but has way less power and give more power to the sovereignty of the countries? Can explain me what you present as an idea for me to understand?
So democratic organization is only possible if you meet certain criteria. Number one, the people that wishes to organize, to establish a democratic organization of some sort, state power, has to exist before you can even begin to organize power, right? There is no European people. There simply isn't. They're speaking about European citizens, but it's not the same. I mean, in the German Grundgesetz, and this is pretty much one of the foundations of every democratic constitution, all power derives from the people. But this people has to exist before it can even voice a political will. This is how we want to do it, right? So number one, there is no European people. And number two is in order to organize democracy and how things work between the institutions, you need to be able to communicate. You need a common language to do that. You cannot expect that, regular people that go to work every day, that they speak different languages to an extent that they could reasonably and intelligently communicate in another language, right? So how am I supposed?
Now, that's an interesting observation that the countries are not speaking the same language, so they cannot coordinate to vote and know what the members of the European
I take it you do not speak German, right?
How do you know?
But there was just a wild guess. Which is a wild guess. Yeah. You don't speak German. Okay. Now, how are you then supposed to let a German elected representative to the EU know what you want? Well, you could speak English, you can say. But, I mean, there is nuances in different languages. And even if you can translate it literally, it may have a different meaning. So you will not be able to have a fully a thorough conversation on things that actually matter, which is the democratic organization of your life, right? So there are so many problems that arise from having
for
this
now we have a problem with languages. Maybe in the future but immediately you can understand everything in all the languages.
And once that has become, we have overcome that, sometime down the line, right? That takes hundreds of years. Yeah, but still, So, and then you also have to take in consideration different peoples, they have different fates. The stuff that binds them together, their collective memory. You can't just, tell Italians, we think this is the right thing for you, when no, we don't. Whatever is right for the Irish people or for the Polish people may not be right for Italian people or French people. You know what I'm saying? So it's the right of self-determination of the people to decide their own fate and make decisions for themselves. So where does the Ursula von der Leyen get off thinking that she has the right to just simply overrule? So yes, I strongly believe in the sovereignty of people. They have the right for self-determination.
So just for me to clarify, so you will be okay with a parliament in the EU that doesn't overstep to EU country's sovereignty?
That's an interesting question. So what I would really like, I think, is there are areas where it makes total sense for the European states, the European national states, to work together. But it has to be done on a voluntary basis, and where the states actually say, we see that benefiting us. Yeah, we are okay with this. We're okay with that, but we don't want this, right? So, but since it's all regulated via the EU Commission, which is like the government of the EU, of this non-state EU, they really don't have that choice anymore, right? There are areas where I would like, where we can have a reasonable and sensible way of working together. But that's, like I said, it's not the way it's done.
So there is a lot of stuff that we're going to get into in our conversation, committees, exactly how the AfD is treated in the EU.
Yeah.
But let's talk a bit more about, you want to say something?
You also touched on the EU Parliament.
Yes.
I was going to comment on that too. So, we have this EU Parliament here, right?
We are pay us every month.
We are highly paid, right?
I agree.
Very highly paid.
€8,500 per month, and every day that we sign 350 euros, so about 12,000
So you would think
a month.
You would think. I mean, since they're giving us that kind of money, you would really think what we're doing here is so damn important, right? I mean, really, it must be something really important. But the point is, we don't have anything to say, do we?
Anything to say? What do you mean? On what is happening, you mean?
Does the Parliament have anything to say?
The Commission, you mean, is deciding everything. Okay.
Do we have to say anything on anything? No, we don't. We've just seen it, chat control. Well, right? The Parliament says,
in theory, someone would say that you can't, what the Commission will do, that is the executive body, you can change and all this stuff, the stuff that they're saying, and you can amend and push.
Well, the way I see the Parliament is pretty much, it's a facade for democracy. It's a democracy illusion, right? So that they can say, look.
Sometimes when chat control passes like this, I couldn't disagree with what you're saying.
Exactly. So it doesn't really matter. Even, if the Parliament says no to something, they don't care. They won't take no for an answer.
I will just explain a bit what happened. We're going to go, it's crazy. They knew that on Thursdays, members of the European Parliament are leaving the Parliament earlier because they want to travel and all this stuff, and they have a bit less members than usual. So they put the vote on that day.
Yeah, well, but I would say...
they put it that the majority, the absolute majority needed to reach 360 people. So that's...
I wouldn't go along with that argument, because that is up to the member. I'm terribly sorry. I take my mandate very seriously. So I never, ever leave before the votes on Thursday. You just don't. So that's a matter of organizing, the member, the way of organizing himself,
but
right?
Some people are leaving, it's a fact. What I said is a fact. When it's a Wednesday, we're voting 670 people. When it's Thursday, we're voting around 590. So it's anyways.
I mean they're playing all kinds of tricks, right? But I mean, just leaving or saying the MEPs aren't there usually, that to me is a non-argument.
Okay, let's go a bit, and let's not get into the nitty-gritty of this. Let's go a bit the higher picture. So the EU talking about should the EU Parliament and all this stuff exist. So for me, as a reasonable, I'm saying, okay, like in the world, we don't really matter if we're not all together. We matter more as to 450 million people instead of like my country is 1 million people, Cyprus. So I prefer for us to be doing trade deals together, making stuff all together, because we will be a lot more powerful and have negotiated and leverage power. Yeah. So I like the EU for this reason, that we can get more than we... But what do you think about this?
Yeah, that is a valid reason. And I'm totally in agreement with you on that. The problem that I see, however, is that it's just the bait. They're telling you, look, you will have more power. Since you're such a small country, we take care of you, right? So you will have leverage power and, negotiation, whatever it is. Yes, in and of itself, that is absolutely beneficial. And only an idiot would say, no, I don't want this. But, and that's the big but here, in order to get to that position or be a beneficiary of that power, you have to swallow all kinds of stuff that you don't want to swallow, right? So let's say the borders are ripped wide open, right? So Poland says...
I was sure you're going to get to that.
Oh, I mean, that's the number one example, right? So Poland says, well, excuse me, ripping our borders wide open? No, sorry, we don't want this. So what does the EU Commission do? Well, if you don't want this, guess what? We cut your money. You will not get any money in Hungary, the same thing, right? So it's blackmail, pretty much what they're doing, right? They're luring you in with all kinds of promises. Oh, this is going to be so great for you, blah, 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 blah. But in essence, the national governments, they're standing there and they have nothing to decide anymore because they're being superseded by the EU Commission. And quite frankly, Ursula von der Leyen, it's not just her, among many. She doesn't give a darn about regular people. She cares about her buddy, Albert Bourla at Pfizer, right? So he can get ungodly known rich. But I mean, we're talking billions and billions of euros here. And but the ones that were supposed to benefit from this so-called vaccine, which wasn't a vaccine, by the way, they didn't benefit from it. Not only did they not benefit from it, I mean, in the mRNA injection, best case scenario, they were completely useless. Worst case, they were harmful. And there is a lot of cases documented where they were actually fatal. People died from it. But the pharmaceutical companies, even though they made billions and billions in profit, they're exempt from any liability. And they're not even interested in taking a look at what did they actually do in these studies. It stinks. And this is the stuff, once you get lured in, with all the promises and the benefits, the downside, to me, it's not worth it, to be quite honest.
I am not sure about all the statistics that you said that they didn't help anyone and all this stuff, but I'm 100% agreement that the COVID was a shit show, that they locked us and in the houses with no real reason. You couldn't, in my country, you couldn't exercise. If you didn't send a text, couldn't leave. It's crazy. So for this reason, just to understand and put your argument in simple words is like, yeah, cooperating together, all together is good. There is stuff to be gained when we are all together as a European Union state. But the way that they are doing it, it's wrong. And for this reason, you are out.
Exactly, pretty much.
Okay, so you don't like the way that is, and you are saying, but let's say a more hopeful person like me could say, okay, let's vote them out, the next parliament, let's spread awareness, like what you are doing in your country. You are getting a lot of support, you have these values and all this stuff. So slowly we can get control over Europe with the democratic way.
But I mean, you see how they handle that. So what I really hate about the EU is its tendency to enslave the peoples in the member states. And the thing is, I mean, they've proven it. So whenever there is a government in power in the member state that the EU doesn't like, or Ursula von der Leyen doesn't like as a representative of EU Commission, they have ways to make sure that the right guys get elected, right? We've seen that in Romania. I forgot, Ceausescu was his name. They just banned him from the election. They accused him of being a spy for the Russians. They have yet to provide a shred of evidence for that claim. But he was gone. He could no longer
run.
Not even run for office anymore. So, what they kind of did in Hungary, that was a shit show in and of itself.
With Orban, you mean the last election?
Exactly. So, what they're doing is pretty much these astroturfing, right?
And we're, by the way, we're together in a committee that is called Democracy Shield, that is protecting democracy and elections in the EU, which
Excellent.
were 90% of the time talking about Russian interference in the elections in the EU, and the hypocritical thing is that we are doing the same thing us to ourselves. Like we are trying to interfere in Moldova's elections. We are trying to interfere in our own elections from one state to the other, to say like what you said in Romania and all this stuff. So it's like a bit hypocritical.
But it's like, it has nothing to do with democracy.
We should care about Russian interference in elections.
Oh, absolutely.
But not only Russian interference.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why, in a way, sometimes the European Parliament is a shit show, because in a committee, because of the chair and all the stuff that it was voted, we were talking about nonsense, and I got bored of it at some point. Like every time that I came to this committee, I stopped coming. It was saying about bad things about Russia, and every time that we said we voted on the final report, and it was the majority of the parliament voted of all this
like,
stuff.
The essence of this report is pretty much this. They are not afraid for democracy. They are afraid of democracy. And that's why they're trying to find all kinds of ways to prevent, proactively prevent the people from voicing their political opinion by claiming hate speech, disinformation, the whole shebang.
I like your speech you said about buzzwords.
Exactly. So, now that in order to ban or to get rid of hate speech, right? We have to censor social media, right? They didn't, now it's the algorithms, it's like this bad thing. But they weren't concerned about the algorithms when it was done by Zuckerberg, when he was banning people for saying
about COVID.
Exactly. That was the problem, because he was applying the algorithms in the way they want them to be applied. But now, once you have a platform that voices different view on certain things, now it's all of a sudden bad, right? So once again, censorship is the very first measure a government takes when they feel that the people don't want what they should want.
So let's talk about freedom of speech. You are a huge advocate for freedom of speech here in the European Parliament. I don't know if you are more than me. We're
Probably
fighting.
not.
We're fighting together.
Yeah, we are.
on this. So do you think freedom of speech exists in Europe right now? And in what extent?
No. It on paper, it does, obviously. We have it in our constitutions pretty much, right? In the German constitution, I'm pretty sure it's in your country the same thing. It even says it in the statutes, I want to call them, of the EU, right? It's one of the EU values that they are always, praising so much, their values. But in principle or in de facto, it does not. So if it is possible, maybe this one story. So that one time it happened that in the middle of a committee meeting, apparently I committed a hate crime, right? In the middle of a committee meeting. So if you hear that, okay, she committed a hate crime, what comes to your mind? Did I pull out a knife and stab people? Of course not. I did not do any such thing. I simply made a statement. What I said was, just to be clear, and I quote, just to be clear, there are exactly two sexes, men and women. And that was supposed to have been that hate crime. They wanted to launch an investigation into me for having committed a hate crime. I mean, it's totally absurd. I'm terribly sorry. The statement, there's exactly two sexes, men and women, is a factually, biologically, scientifically based, correct statement. But since we now not only have misinformation and disinformation, we also have now malinformation. Misinformation is the unintentional stating of a non-objectively true fact. Disinformation is the intentional stating of a non-true fact. Malinformation, however, is correct information, as a totally correct statement, but it is harmful. Harmful for what? And who decides what is harmful, right? So in the statement I made, there's only two sexes, men and women, that is considered harmful. And that's why I'm not allowed to say that anymore. What? So see where this is going? But if the freedom of speech had any value, it is to offend. It is to disturb. That's the very essence. You don't need freedom of speech for statements that everyone would like to hear. I mean, I can tell you, I love you. You're such a great guy all day long, right? You wouldn't have a problem with that. But once I started criticizing you, and once I said, well, look, you know, what you did there, I really don't like that for that and that reason. If you now get to tell me that is hate speech, how are you going to grow? How are you going to evolve, right? Democracy lives from debate. And if you can no longer debate things because it's malinformation or forbidden or hate speech or disinformation, whatever it is, then you no longer have a debate. Yeah. And you will ultimately no longer have a possibility to arrive to get to the truth. There is so many, go back in history. I mean, there was a time once, it was, you know, the consensus of every scholar, every elite, whatever it was, that I'm sorry, usually I get this confused, that the sun was actually surrounding Earth, yes. Right? That there was anyone saying the opposite of it, he was being tortured and, you know, had to recant whatever it was. One single guy said, no, guys, it's the other way around. It's actually, you know, Earth surrounding the sun. Back then, you were practically right? Exactly. But nowadays, we know this one guy, he was right.
Yeah, so yeah. That's why freedom of speech matters.
Exactly. You should be allowed to speak no matter what.
And the great question on this topic is who judges what is true or not?
Who is the arbiter of that? Ursula von der Leyen? Well, thank you. No.
So
no. Exactly.
Because
yes.
You need to allow people to say whatever they want. Of course, there
is laws.
Make promotion to kill you or all this stuff.
But there's laws for that. You are not allowed to incite violence. You are not allowed to defame people, to slander people. There's already laws for that. But it is not slander if I say Ursula von der Leyen, she ripped off the peoples in the member states in the EU.
So just to be clear, I don't think right now, so many things are being censored online about stuff. But I think what they're trying to do is put some regulations in place and all this stuff. When there is time and they will need it, they will be able to control the narrative and abandon freedom of speech, like what COVID did. So I think now what I'm afraid is and I think Pavel Durov is saying this, and I admire also some of his stance that he's doing with telegrams and all this stuff about freedom of speech. He's saying that all these things that scanning, you need to have ID to be on social media. When you are under 16, it's just going to help people. But in a way, you are give more power to these people to know exactly who you are and all this stuff, to not have anonymous accounts, to be able to say stuff. Because,
of course.
So they are putting, I'm afraid, the infrastructure,
Yeah.
when there is something in the future, to be able, but I believe that there is freedom of speech right now in Europe in general. I don't think we're being censored here and there about things. Maybe some things, but I think what they're trying to do is put things. I don't know if you agree with this statement that I said in a way.
Well, I mean, but freedom of speech, like I said, it is on paper, we have it, obviously, but it is no longer being observed and lived. For example, in Germany, you get visits from the police now early in the morning, like at 6 a.m. Now we have this joke going. You always should have your bathrobe ready, right? Simply because like one pensioner, he called the Minister of Economics, Robert Habeck, a moron. Right? He didn't even write, he's a moron. He just used like a meme, right? So, yeah, and he was prosecuted for it, I mean, it's insane. I mean, I believe that our Chancellor now, Friedrich Merz, he's a complete idiot. And I should be allowed to say that. I mean, he can prove me wrong by doing the right thing and by implementing good policies. But every day he proves me right. He is a complete idiot. But if people get prosecuted for criticizing government, which is one of the core elements of every democracy, you need to be able to scrutinize and, of course, criticize your government. If that is being criminalized, then we have a problem. Then we are no longer in democracy. And the infrastructure you're talking about, they're implementing exactly that. So they will be able to sort out the dissidents. And where have we seen that before? We have seen that in Soviet communism. We have seen that in GDR. There was the Soviet-controlled part of Germany, right? They had the Stasi. And the only thing why the GDR actually failed, the state failed, because the Stasi, they literally suffocated from all the information they had gathered on the citizens, and they didn't have the manpower to work through all of the information. But given the technological means nowadays, computers, AI, it would be nothing. A state would literally know every single detail about every single citizen. And this is really the scary part here. If you live in a democracy, the citizens have a right to know everything about the government. In a tyranny, however, the government knows everything about the citizen. And that's the huge difference. And we are well on our way to sliding up into a totalitarian regime. And there is so many indications for just that. You already mentioned a few. The censorship on social media. Now Ursula von der Leyen is coming up with you need ID to access social media. There is so many examples, right? I really have to say, I was not afraid of COVID. I really wasn't. I was afraid of my government and what they were capable of doing. And they have shown their colors, especially during COVID. Threatening people with their livelihoods. You won't have a job if you don't get the jab. You can't ride the bus, literally isolating them. That's how you erect a totalitarian regime. And that's what they're set out to do.
Are you the most hated woman in the European Parliament?
Me? Oh, I hope not. I don't know. I guess it depends. There is probably people that say, yeah, absolutely. But I'm pretty sure there's other people that say, nah, she's actually a good person.
Okay.
So I don't know. I leave that up to you.
I don't know, but there is a lot of people that don't like you here in the European Parliament.
Considering where I am, I must be doing something right. If everybody liked me in this place, I must be doing something wrong. So
sometimes when I do speeches in the plenary and nobody claps, I get a bit offended. But after I think about it, I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, I should actually make it a point to show up in plenary when you have a speech, so just I can applaud you. I'm pretty sure I would appreciate what you have to say.
Okay, but I ask this question just to bring into awareness to the topic how hated the ESN and AFD is inside the parliament. So if you can speak a bit about it.
Well,
and what they're trying to do to ban you from doing stuff and all these things.
So it's a little different in EU Parliament. So, the Cordon sanitaire, in Germany, it's called Brandmauer, like a firewall. It is actually not that big a deal in this place. Because
it's a bigger deal in the
yes, German? Absolutely. In the Bundestag and in the state parliaments, it's worse there because you only have German MEPs there, right? Or German members of the respective parliament. Here, however, you have members from all kinds of countries. So, and quite frankly, people from Poland, they don't care about the German firewall, Brandmauer, Cordon sanitaire, whatever you want to call it. They just want to make, have good policies. So it's not quite as drastic here. However, this has been going on ever since we were founded in 2013. So back then we were anti-European, of course, because we criticized the EU and criticized the euro. And then, the mass... I'm going to call it mass invasion because that's what it is at this point. When Angela Merkel ripped open the borders, in September of 2015. So then we were, homophobes and xenophobes and the whole shebang, racists. And but it got to a point, and then eventually, they labeled us as, the worst kind, which obviously now what I'm talking about, right? Fascists and stuff like that. But it got to a point. How do you top that?
Yeah.
How do you top that? So they
already call you Hitler. So how do you top Hitler?
They've done that too. So, but they reached the end. There is nothing worse. But yet, we are still growing in numbers. So they need to come up with something better yet, which is impossible. And that's how they are actually showing their true colors once again.
I think in a democracy, all this hate actually does the opposite to the people.
I'm sorry, say again?
All this hate actually does the opposite to the people. They make you as
they are
the underdog in a way.
The thing is this. They're accusing us of spreading hate, right?
And they're spreading hate towards you.
So, but I guarantee we just had a party convention. You may have heard of it. It was a massive police was there to just make sure that they wouldn't kill us. Had they gotten any one of us within their fingers, I swear to you, we'd be dead.
Really?
They would beat us to death. Given the chance, they would beat us to death. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in these situations a couple of times.
Can you explain us? Can you say us some
like in 2015, we were, just on a kind of like a protest or whatever. And we were like 70 people protesting, 70. And we were surrounded by like a mob of 4,000 of them.
4,000 policemen?
No, 4,000
people.
Antifa, most. It wasn't all Antifa, but see, that's the thing. Antifa hides among, regular people, right? And out of that crowd, they're committing all kinds of violent crimes. They threw a stone against my head. It hit me right. I went down. It was like, the whole shebang. But they would, had they gotten the chance, we were protected by police, obviously, but even the police was overwhelmed with sheer numbers of Antifa there. Had they gotten the chance, they would have beaten me to death.
Are you afraid of your life when you are in Germany?
No, because that's what they want. They want me to be afraid. I'm not afraid. No, seriously, I'm not. So that one time they put some kind of it's even ugly, like a graffiti on my house, right? So
they put also graffiti in my house.
It's like a ugly kind of face, and it says "Make racists afraid again," right? They're make racists afraid again, right? And they did that that must have been September 2017. Guess what? It's still on my house, and I put this huge frame around it, directly on my house wall. Yes. No. They want to intimidate me. Guess what? It's not working. I will celebrate that you considered me be worthy of your visits. Come again, please do.
You don't want your enemy doesn't is not in a good spot.
No, I mean, that's what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to achieve that you are afraid and keep your mouth shut.
You are an intimidating woman, I would say.
I am intimidating? Oh,
yes,
wow.
because of your intellectual capacity.
No, but like I said, that's what they're trying to achieve. Terrorize people so they will keep their mouth shut, right? That's the ultimate goal. They want dissidents to just shut up.
So can you explain me so you said the Cordon sanitaire, but I see the Cordon sanitaire a bit working here in the European Parliament.
It is working.
Every time you make amendments here in the European Parliament, they don't vote your stuff. So in a way, your voice as a political group doesn't really matter.
Well,
in the EU sometimes.
I would disagree. So in the last mandate, it was just like that. I mean, the majority, it was like so strong on the left and the green part, right? So no matter what we did, we never got anything. It is different now because overall we have grown in numbers. So there have been amendments that have actually passed that we had tabled.
How many MEPs you have as
ESN 27.
And you are all from AFD?
No.
How many are from AFD?
15.
15.
Right.
Okay.
So you can have an all AFD group in EU Parliament or all cities. For sure. Right. So
you need 7 different countries.
Yeah. So exactly. So but it's different, you know. So there is committees now.
You are explaining why it's not like that in this mandate.
Because we have overall grown in numbers. Not just AFD
so you
group.
matter, you mean, in majority.
Yes. So the Patriots have grown.
And sometimes when they're trying to make a right-wing majority and they're
exactly.
You.
There is instances there's a right conservative majority.
And when they want you are asking for favors in return.
Well, that's usually how it works. You know, I mean, if I'm the chief whip of my group, right?
Chief whip means?
Chief whip means I organize the plenary session. I organize our amendments that we table as a group, our initiatives.
Okay, so you oversee the...
Right. And I also negotiate with other groups. You know, can we work on this together? So yeah. So if someone approaches me, hey, we have this initiative, you know, could your group support it? Blah, blah, blah. Then I would say, yeah, well, I'll look at it, of course, and, you know, go back to my group and, you know, then we decide whether or not we can support this. But then, of course, we say, well, we have this, you know, can you see yourself supporting us in this?
So
we work together.
Pass stuff in this mandate?
Yes, we did. We did. So, and we do work together, right? Not with the left, obviously, you know, that they wouldn't be caught dead probably working together with that. But there have been...
But sometimes it's crazy.
We vote the same way, right?
Most of the times you vote the same way with the left.
Well,
Accept immigration and some other things, but like when it comes to
freedom of speech and stuff like that, yes.
Ukraine,
absolutely.
The war and stuff.
Absolutely.
So there is... And it's a bit hypocritical.
I know. And you know what?
They say, we never vote with them. Like 50% of the votes is the same.
I know. But I really would, you know, tell the left in particular. I mean, they've always been the proponents, the advocates for free speech and, you know, democracy. They really need to take a good look at themselves if they're not slipping away from that. You know, just to get their ideological...
I agree.
You know.
And the most of the one that I disagree with them is this, that they hate so much the far right that they forgot their values.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably a good way of putting it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how many years you've been here in this house?
Going on 7 now. So I was elected in 2019 for the first time. So.
And you want to continue more?
Yeah, I'm not done with this place yet. So, yeah, I would like to continue.
So what is like your dream for you to achieve here in a way, for you to make happen in general, in the EU, in the Parliament?
Well, my biggest dream obviously would be that Ursula von der Leyen finally steps down. That's just for starters. It's just, you know. No, but overall... I would really want for the European peoples in their respective states to once again to be proud of themselves, of their achievements. I mean, what they as a people have accomplished, and not throw it away because Ursula von der Leyen or some EU commission tells them they have to do it this way now, you have to do it that way now. They really shouldn't do it. Like I said, all the peoples have a right to self-determination, and they should apply that right, and they should define for themselves, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. Okay, this is what we want, we can work together in this area. But since we don't want this, we will not work with you in this area, right? So they should not feel any pressured into doing things that the people in that member states don't want. The governments, once again, need to realize they are the ones working for the people. They're not the boss of the people. It's the people that is the boss of the government. So, and until we get back to that very basic understanding of what democracy means, we will ultimately run into very big problems, some of which we are already seeing the beginning of. So we need to get back to the basics. What does democracy mean? And yes, if a government does not live up to the expectation of the people, it's the people's right to not elect that government anymore, to run that government out of office. That has nothing to do with that you are anti-democratic and that you're too stupid to understand. No, the people get to call the shots and not the governments.
It's difficult because people in member states, they don't really care about European politics.
I was just going to say that.
And
they
should. Don't know.
They should.
So for example, they don't know. Like my president in Cyprus, they don't, if they knew what he's voting here in the European Parliament.
Absolutely.
So that's my job to explain to them as well and all this stuff.
Good.
But yeah, it's.
But that's probably the reason.
That's
probably the reason they don't like you.
I'm a bit up, now it's a bit better. I'm trying with AI dubbing and all this stuff to make my videos in all the languages, but I can only do it in my country. I cannot do it in Germany with my. I'm very powerful in social media and the way that I'm explaining all this stuff. So it's a pity that I cannot. Encourage all Europeans to explain them what I believe this is the right way forward.
See, that's exactly the point. And that's why when I say they, I mean, the EU in general, EU Commission, whatever it is, that's the reason they don't like you. They don't want people to know what is going on here.
In the European
They have been, for the most part, the people didn't care, didn't really know. Yeah, but now it's people like you and me, and we're telling people, look, this is what they're actually doing. They're undermining democracy. They're getting rid of democracy. They're censoring social media. They don't want the people to know. So I really have to urge the people, take an interest in EU politics. I know it's boring and you may not like it, but I guarantee you 80% of all of the problems in your country and in your personal life that is making your life pretty much a living hell right now. The rise in costs and all of that. I don't want to get into that. 80% of all of that crap is coming from EU. And the only way to change that is if you take an interest and you vote in the EU elections. And don't vote for those who got you in the mess in the first place. Vote for those who want to fix the problem. That's what the people need to do. They have it in their hands and they should act. I guess that was a pretty good conversation we had. Don't you agree?
You want to finish? It's time for you to go, huh?
I probably have to head on. You have another appointment.
Okay, just 2 questions. How did you find our conversation?
Excellent. I really liked it. It was just, easygoing. We just spoke and talked and it was fun. We should do this again.
And the last question that I ask everyone. If you die in 30 seconds, what do you want your last words to be in this planet if you actually did die?
Democracy is worth protecting. Protect it by all means.
Thank you.
Thank
Christina
you so much.
Anderson, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching until the end. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.